Hey everyone, SW Gaming here, and today's video is going to continue on with the original trilogy era of my Skywalker Saga level speculation series. I hope everyone has continued to do well throughout this month, and for myself, it's hard to believe that April is almost over. Hopefully these videos have been able to provide you with some temporary entertainment, and the closer we get to May the 4th, the more likely it is that we'll get an update on the game itself, so we'll have even more to discuss at a later date. Until that time, today's video is going to focus on my favorite film in the Skywalker Saga, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. Last Sunday began the original trilogy with Episode 4, A New Hope, so if you missed it, I'd recommend checking it out through the link at the top right of the video. Before we go any further, I wanted to remind everyone that my Skywalker Saga videos release on Wednesdays and Sundays. Some people have been asking for more Skywalker Saga videos, but I put a lot of time and effort into the content that I do release, so for the time being we're going to stick with 2 videos a week until we get a new trailer or update from the game's developers, TT Games. Some people have also been wondering why we haven't got an update on the game recently, but it's important to consider that TT Games more than likely doesn't have a say in when they release information about their games. I'd imagine that a lot of the release patterns are dependent on companies such as Warner Bros. Games or even LEGO themselves, so please keep that in mind, especially with everything that has been going on as of recent. The original trilogy has been around for the longest time and has had the most content produced by LEGO themselves, especially when it comes to actual products and sets. I'm hoping that the Skywalker Saga introduces some new elements from the original trilogy that we've yet to experience in a LEGO game, but in terms of what could be new in the level design is slightly hard to imagine. Today I'm going to attempt to introduce some new design elements and level layouts, which will help to diversify what was established in previous LEGO Star Wars games. Now, if you've seen any of my previous level speculation videos, you can go ahead and skip this part of the video. You'll find a timestamp down below in the comments, which will start off with the first level in Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. If this is your first time watching a video in this series, please continue watching. To start off, I wanted to state that all comments and opinions reflected in this video come solely from myself. In each video of this series, I'll explain the levels associated with the selected episode from the Star Wars universe, what characters we could expect to be unlocked, what locations may be included in each episode, and much, much more. What we know so far about the Skywalker Saga is that each episode will contain 5 levels each, which is down 1 from what we received in the complete saga back in 2007. Although we lose 1 level per episode, each level from the Skywalker Saga will be around 10 to 15 minutes long, more than likely without cutscenes, so we should expect little over an hour's worth of playable content from each episode, not including side missions. Since we still have no footage or exact knowledge on how the game's travel system will work, it's kinda up in the air as to how well the overall story layout and travel functions will mesh together. I would still like to see some sort of lobby though, such as the Mos Eisley Cantina or even Dexter's Diner, as an easier way to replay already completed levels. I know it's been previously stated that there won't be a lobby included like previous games, but even The Force Awakens had some sort of home base such as on Dakar, and I would like to see that continued in this game. Before we go ahead and begin with Chapter 1 of The Empire Strikes Back, I want to make it clear that this video is pure speculation and does not reflect any thoughts or comments previously expressed by the game's developers, TT Games. These level layouts will more than likely not directly reflect what we will see in the actual game, but I make these videos regarding what we could see once the game is released. Now, with all of that out of the way, let's begin with Chapter 1 titled Battle of Hoth. 3 years after the destruction of the Death Star, the Rebel Alliance has transitioned their home base from Yavin 4 to the wintry planet of Hoth. Because so much happens during this first part of the film, it's difficult to exactly pinpoint where the story will begin. After an Imperial probe droid lands on the surface of Hoth, Luke Skywalker is sent to investigate until he is suddenly ambushed by a Wampa. The first part of this level could begin here, as Luke attempts to escape and must defeat the Wampa, but I could also see this aspect being included in Free Roam as it's a relatively minor part that could be handled through a cutscene as well. After Luke flees, he passes out during a snowstorm, left for dead until rescued by Han Solo just before sundown. It's here where we could see another potential part of this level where Han and Chewbacca investigate the probe droid. This could also be accomplished during free roam, and after defeating numerous droids, that could give us one of our many collectible Kyber bricks stated to be in the game. Since the Hoth Echo Base is so large and vast, I'd imagine that it won't be heavily included in the gameplay, but will serve as a large hub for free roam. The majority of this first level will be spent focused solely on the battlefield. Numerous times we'll switch between rebel soldiers in the trenches and snowspeeder pilots attempting to take out the AT-ATs, and by the way, that's just how I say it. I don't say AT-ATs, but it really doesn't matter because everyone knows you're still talking about the same thing. If you say it differently though, let me know down in the comments below. Playing as a rebel soldier and officer, you're placed on the battlefield trying to protect numerous objectives and trying to defeat a certain number of stormtroopers, somewhat similar to what you could experience in Battlefront 2. After numerous objectives have been completed, you're forced to retreat towards the base as several snow speeders exit. Piloting one of these speeders, you travel around the map, and it's your objective to defeat a certain number of AT-STs and AT-ATs. After doing so, your snow speeder is blown apart, as a cutscene transitions to Luke Skywalker, who has just crash landed into the snow. Exiting the vehicle, you fight several snowtroopers until making your way into the AT-AT and begin taking control, defeating other Imperial vehicles. After a brief moment doing so, you exit the AT-AT as it is blown apart. A cutscene shows Luke falling back into the snow as General Veers attacks the generators and Darth Vader's shuttle lands, approaching the base. Chapter 2, Escape from Echo Base, continues with the Battle of Hoth, and some people may disagree that this part of the film deserves 2 levels. But considering it's 1/3 of the overall plot and so much action occurs, I believe this sequence deserves an additional level. This level will focus solely on the escape from Echo Base, playing as Leia, Han, Chewbacca, and C-3PO. Like the title insists, this level will somewhat backtrack as Leia and Han roam throughout the hallways arguing with one another. While in the control room, they witness the snowspeeders leaving the hangar bay as the rebel troopers begin to flee battle. The base begins to fall apart as snowtroopers enter, and our heroes flee attempting to reach the Millennium Falcon. Throughout this level, parts of the objectives will include collecting several parts in order to repair the Falcon and make our escape. While Chewbacca works on repairing the Falcon, you must defend the ship for numerous waves of snowtroopers. Once enough enemies have been defeated, you're able to board the Falcon and make the escape just as Darth Vader enters the hangar. Leaving the base, you must defeat a short wave of TIE fighters over the battlefield, and doing so will trigger the final cutscene. Luke Skywalker approaches his X-Wing as he witnesses the Falcon fleeing the area, thus splitting our main heroes apart for the remainder of this episode. There could also be additional aspects of this level that include a brief journey throughout the asteroid field after the Falcon eludes the Imperial Star Destroyers, but I chose not to include that during this part of the level, as it could be a free roam scenario. I'm not really sure if TT Games would include the Space Slug scene in an actual level, as it doesn't really fit in perfectly with any one scene. In the film, it's awkwardly laid out between Dagobah and Cloud City, so I'd imagine that this could be another free roam option throughout the vast galaxy, which this game has to offer and to be explored. One thing that I'm positive on though is that throughout the entirety of Chapter 3, the level will focus solely on Luke's training on Dagobah. Chapter 3, which I've decided to title Jedi Training, starts off as Luke approaches the Dagobah system and crash lands into the swampy waters. After a cutscene of a creature spying on Luke, we are introduced to Yoda and must travel back to his hut as we explore the swamp planet more in depth. A quick cutscene reveals that Luke is to be properly trained as a Jedi in the ways of the Force, and that this is what the majority of the level consists of. Up until this point, Luke hasn't been able to use any Force abilities, so any outfits that we unlock after this point will enable those abilities. For example, if we switch back to Luke's farm boy appearance, he wouldn't be able to unlock anything that requires a Jedi to do so. During this level, I believe we can expect to unlock numerous abilities as we learn new skills such as a higher jump ability for Luke as well as force push and pull. Once all of the necessary abilities have been unlocked, the final part of this mission involves us confronting the path to the dark side in the first boss battle of this episode. Traveling into the Dagobah cave as R2 and Luke, we encounter numerous creatures, but the main part of this area involves encountering the form of Darth Vader. Now, this Darth Vader fight will be a little more difficult than what we experienced between Obi-Wan and Vader from Episode 4, but not as difficult as the fight on Cloud City will be later on. After defeating Vader's shadow, Luke finds himself underneath the mask, and a cutscene shows Luke running outside the cave as Yoda shakes his head, knowing that he is far from completing his training. After several scenes, Luke meditates and becomes aware that his friends are in danger. Going against Yoda's advice, Luke attempts to pull his X-Wing out of the swamp but fails. Yoda removes the X-Wing using the Force, and the scene transitions to Luke leaving Dagobah, headed towards Bespin. This level closes on Yoda taking a seat, and the Force ghost of Obi-Wan appears as they converse about Luke amongst one another. Chapter 4, Betrayal at Cloud City, opens after the Millennium Falcon has evaded the Imperial Star Destroyers and is in dire need of refuge and repairs. Not knowing what else to do, Han decides to travel to Bespin, hoping that they can find temporary shelter with his former friend. Once landed on Cloud City, the group is introduced once more to Lando Calrissian as him and Han reconnect with one another, but unknowingly a bounty hunter named Boba Fett has been tracking them the entire time. The cutscene continues as the group is betrayed by Lando, and Han attempts to ruin the meal that Darth Vader has lovingly prepared for them. Han is frozen in carbonite as Boba collects his bounty, and the level begins once outside the carbon freezing chamber. Playing as Lando, Leia, and Chewbacca, we attempt our escape from Cloud City. This is a rather lengthy level as there's lots of areas to discover throughout, while trying to defeat Boba Fett, who appears at numerous points throughout. The level transitions after catching up to Boba as he's about to enter the Slave One, and a mini boss battle commences. I'd expect that this battle plays out the same way that it did during Episode 2 with Jango and Obi-Wan, except this time we're limited to just blasters. After doing enough damage, Boba is flung against the Slave One as he quickly enters and takes off towards Tatooine to collect payment for his bounty. The rest of this mission is spent traveling back to the Falcon while stormtroopers try to hunt you down. At some point during this escape, R2-D2 joins the crew and they flee Cloud City, unknowingly leaving Luke behind to fight Darth Vader alone. Chapter 5 could go by numerous names such as Darth Vader, which was previously used in Episode 3, or I Am Your Father, but I've decided to just go with the Discovery as it sums up the scene quite well in my opinion. After landing on Cloud City, Luke and R2 make their way throughout the area during this first part of the mission, which acts as another stealth mode opportunity. Along the way, we witness several scenes from the previous chapter that include Boba headed towards the Slave One with Han in carbonite. I think it'd be really awesome to see several scenes from the previous level in the background of this one. We'd obviously wouldn't be able to interact with the other characters, but it'd still be cool to see that both events are happening simultaneously without Luke knowing. Later in the level, we'll eventually split from R2 and entering the carbon freezing chamber, but in the case that we're playing in co-op mode, R2 will join us throughout this mission. I know that all levels throughout this game and in previous LEGO games are designed for 2 players, but I think that the fight between Luke and Vader needs to be more focused on a 1 versus 1 scenario. I'm sure that's just wishful thinking on my end, but I'd like to see this scene remain faithful to the reference material. It's at this part of the level where we've probably seen the most footage from the overall game in one specific scene, and I'm really hoping that this Vader fight will prove to be a fairly challenging one, and the hardest battle to date besides the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Luke loses a hand while settling his daddy issues and eventually sacrifices his life, except he doesn't and is stranded at the bottom of Cloud City on a weather vane until later rescued by Leia and the others, who has recently tapped into her own Force abilities. The level transitions to the Nebulon B Frigade as Luke and Leia embrace one another before attempting their rescue plan to save Han Solo from the crime lord Jabba the Hutt, which will begin Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, next week. The chapter ends and we're once again met with a completion screen that displays your personal stats for the game, in addition to all the new characters that have been unlocked. Although most of The Empire Strikes Back takes place on either Hoth or Bespin, this episode has a lot to offer in terms of more diverse battles and interesting boss fights. As previously stated, Episode 5 is one of my favorite films, not only in the original trilogy, but throughout the entire Skywalker Saga, and I'm very interested to see what TT Games plans to do in order to diversify this episode from the previous level layouts and designs that we received from the complete saga back in 2007. One thing for sure though is that I'm hoping the game includes a ground attack section during the Battle of Hoth, as we've yet to get that in a LEGO game. Now, next Sunday's video is going to finish off the original trilogy with Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, so please be sure to come back next Sunday, May 3rd, for the finale of this trilogy. If I happen to miss anything that you believe should have been included in a specific level or should be included for next week's video, please let me know down below. Like I've said, creating these videos takes a lot of time and effort, but I enjoy thinking about what we could expect to see from the Skywalker Saga upon release. If you're not currently subscribed and would like to stay up to date on the remaining episodes in this series, or any of my other Skywalker Saga videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Once again, those videos release on both Wednesdays and Sundays, and if you haven't entered my Skywalker Saga giveaway yet, time is running out on that as it ends April 29th. If you want to learn more, the video to that will be linked at the end of this one. With that said, this is going to wrap up today's video, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.